Great. All right. Well, thanks, Claire. Thank you, everybody, for taking a portion of your time this morning. I do have to jump off at 9:30 to attend a Winooski District meeting at 10. So I need to jump off around 9:30, 9:35. But yeah, let's jump into it. If gotta see if I can find my email holding the agenda. So first up would be review and approve the June meeting minutes.
Okay, I'll move to approve the June meeting minutes.
I could second that.
Okay. Bill?
Yep.
Is there a second?
Richard.
Yep.
Richard, second. Any further discussion on the June meeting minutes? Thank you to those involved with listening and collecting the words on the page. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Next up would be grant proposals, approvals, and updates, starting with Lena on the enhanced design, development, and implementation block grant.
Hi, yes, I'm just looking for approval for the amendment on this grant. I sent it out yesterday morning. Hopefully you had a chance to look at it.
Yep.
And I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Just some background on the process of this. Normally, we bring approvals to the committee when we have an application, and the committee approves once we're applying for a grant. Because this is an amendment, it's just issued by DEC. There was no application process. So we're bringing it to you now. And the purpose of the approval is to ensure that I'm comfortable with the financial commitment that it represents.
Okay.
I can make a motion to accept that.
I'll second it.
Motion by Richard, seconded by Bill. Any further discussion? Yeah, thanks, Lena, for the email this morning or yesterday regarding what, 822,000 additional dollars, bringing us up to a new total of what, 3.7, almost 3.8 through the end of March of 2029. So a well-welcomed increase.
So I'm just curious about how did that come about? How did that additional funding, why did that? And we're in this, this climate of always seeming that everything's being cut.
I can take that, Lena. So this is the enhancement grant program is a line item in the clean water budget. These are clean water funds that get passed through DEC and then come to us and to two other entities. The Watersheds United Vermont gets one of these grants, as well as the Mount Ascutney Regional Commission. So the way DEC has been handling it is that they do a parent agreement, which is a competitive bid process. And then once they have those parent agreements in place, they put out amendments periodically. It's been happening every year, and it's just distributing additional clean water funds that have been appropriated to that line item. So far, there was actually a Clean Water Board meeting yesterday, and so far that fund has been pretty strong. The revenue flows into it have been relatively consistent. They are going to be missing some ARPA funds and some other, one-time appropriations that had gone into that bucket. But in general, it seems like that's staying strong. So there haven't been any major changes to the allocations yet. There may be next year in response to the federal situation.
Okay.
But so far, we're just receiving, this would have been last fiscal year's money, I believe, that's being put out now. So we're still working off of money from previous years, and this will, go into our overall bucket of money for this type of work. and it will extend our program, I believe, until 2029. So we really appreciate DEC putting this out when they did. They actually pushed up the amendment date for us so that we could get the money sooner, to try to lock that in. So, but we will have to see what happens in future years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was in the reconciliation bill, right? This appropriation, the federal probably.
This is
Well,
Clean
state
Water
money.
Fund. It's state
Huh?
money. Yeah.
Oh,
So
this is state money.
it's all state money.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Thanks for that clarification, Rick.
Yeah, so it's all state money, and the main sources of revenue are a surcharge on the property transfer tax,
Oh, okay.
unredeemed bottle returns, and I don't know, there's one other source of revenue, but there are three state sources.
Oh, great. Thanks for
primarily-
that. Yeah, that's really helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so don't return your bottles.
Yeah.
You've got to keep this fund strong. Any other questions on the motion?
Oh,
All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Aye. Thank you, Lena
hmm.
and Claire.
Hmm.
So I guess we'll move along then to the next one, FY 27 Forest Services budget request.
So I think this one I might ask to move this to the next meeting. It's not that there's much uncertainty about this so much as I don't have a specific budget, to show you right now. What I have is the FY 26 proposed budget, which just given this where we're at with the FY 27 request is likely to be very similar. Right now, the strategy we've discussed for the FY 27 budget request for core services has been to request maintaining what we have right now. So that would be the total number. I'm pulling that up right now. It's 800. Excuse me.
62.
Yep. Rick, it sounds like you had that in front of you.
Yep.
Yeah. So we would be requesting that amount again. I don't have a specific thing to present for approval. With the due date on this is not until September 1st. That's when the Agency of Agriculture needs that recommendation in hand. And we are looking to set up a meeting with the Agency of Agriculture to discuss that request in the first 2 weeks of September. So that's the timeline. I can do a little work to present a budget, the same as I have for the FY 26. But I didn't pull that together for this meeting. So any, I guess, questions or discussion on that?
Yeah, Rick here. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go, Rick.
For the last several years, we've been requesting $3 million from the legislature. I think the agency, we have to make that request initially, submit it to the Vermont Agency of Agriculture. So, I think the Agency of Ag understands and is aware of our, need, $3 million need. We've been able to get the authority to submit that $3 million request to the legislature. The appropriation that we've received for the last, I'm going to say, 4 years has been well short of that $3 million request. FY 26, we ended up receiving $862,000. So it seems pretty clear that asking for $3 million is not, we're just barking up the wrong tree. So whether we ask for level funding, 862, or whether we ask for something slightly higher on the order of $1 million, You know, I think that's kind of where we're heading with this for FY27. So to the extent that Claire can prepare something for all of us to consider next month, I definitely encourage us to look at a nice round number of $1 million.
I agree.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Yeah, it does seem to make sense. I mean, we had a discussion at the last meeting, you know, about the sort of the strategic move of asking for less than 1 million. But I guess I have the same question for this core services grant. It seems like it was unexpected to get this additional funding, just based on what we talked about at the last meeting. But maybe I'm misinterpreting that. I'm just curious about how that came about, that we got more than the 612,000.
The additional funding was awarded to us based on the lobbying efforts that were undertaken by VACD. You know, VACD led that effort with a $3 million request. At
Mhm.
one point during the session, both sides of the legislature, various committees were advocating for the full 3 million. But that got walked back through the process of budget record, you know, just trying to, as the budget got passed back and forth, and as it went into conference committee, it really got pared back. And, you know, I think where we're at with this conversation for next year is just recognizing that the state is going to be facing unprecedented degree of pressure on its budget, particularly with the big bill that came through from you know, the federal government, and potential impacts mostly to, you know, human services type and
Sure.
medical type funding. So, you know, I think what's been discussed with VACD and their lobbying efforts is that to not ask for too much, because that will come across as being tone deaf and
I think that
potentially
makes sense. Yeah, we had a discussion about that the last meeting. I thought that made a lot of sense. Okay,
great.
so
Thank
you.
I think I'll plan to prepare something for next meeting, so that you can just take a look at the budget breakdown. But the way that budget usually goes is we usually look at, you know, allocations to districts, as one subset of the budget, and then, you know, the rest of it is council and council's needs. And right now, council is primarily supporting its staffing based off of our other competitive grants like Ag CWIP, the DEC grants, all of those. So, I kind of feel pretty confident that we can make things work for council under a lot of different scenarios, but yeah, I can do more work for next meeting on that.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, so again, just moving us along, we'll upon Claire's recommendation, we'll table the FY27 core services request until next month.
Yeah.
So anybody has any other further questions or comments, I guess I would move us along to the FY26 core services budget finalization. Claire.
Thanks, Rick. I will share my screen. So some portion of this has already been voted on by the board. So what the board has voted on is this allocation up here to districts. So that's already been approved, and that would be $747,000 of the overall 862,000 that would go directly to districts. That's 87%. And it works out to $53,357 per district. The way we arrived at that number is we took the pre-existing allocation, which was 35,500 to districts, and then we just divided the, you know, additional 250 equally and added that to the base allocation. So all of the additional $250,000 that we were awarded is going to districts under this budget, and that's been approved by the board. The rest of the budget is just showing a breakdown of what council's portion looks like. This is always difficult to predict, because there are so many unknowns with council's budget. Every year I put a placeholder in here for supplies and admin expenses. The only known portion of that is really this, the NASCA dues. That's the only portion that we really know. The rest of it is all stuff that's in development that we have not been charged for previously. That and that we don't have a good sense of what it will come in at because of some unknowns. So right now, other stuff that this line item would support would be the cost of a website, phone numbers, emails. That's already in the works. And then the cost of state insurance, which we've been talking with the Agency of Administration about. They're still unsure about how to set our rates. So this is sort of a placeholder to try to make sure we have money in the bank to cover these kinds of expenses if they come through, or as they come through. So that's here. And if we don't spend this down, what ends up happening is that it does get reallocated to other line items, sort of as needed. So, this budget to some extent is a best guess, that might be subject to change based on what actually ends up coming through. The supervisory union representation, this is per diems for participation in council meetings. So we do budget for 5 board meetings per year. We've been doing 3 or 4 per year. Our goal is to do 4 per year. I think we're on pace to do 4 per year this year. We budget for 5 in case we need to call a special meeting. And then we do budget for the finance committee meetings. So that's how this number gets developed. And then we have a portion of council staffing. So council administration, that is council staffing, that comes out of core services. Flat budgeting this at $50,000. We do, personnel expenses do go up year over year, but at this point, I believe we have money under our other grants to cover any increase, so I'm not too concerned about this being flat budgeted. But this is just a small portion of our overall staffing costs for council. And then we have district manager leadership. This is our district manager rep positions. So this money does go to districts. Right now, the district manager representatives are Sarah Damsel from Orleans and Corey Ross from Wyndham. So they do get paid to attend various meetings, to do various representation work on behalf of districts, and that supports their work. We have a placeholder for any contractual needs that might pop up throughout the year. Particularly, we're looking at trying to get some contractual support for HR and finance needs for districts. We've talked about this for a little while now, but who we contract to do this work is still kind of up in the air. We've looked at trying to do a contract with VLCT. There's also been a couple other private firms we've thrown around. Assuming that happens this year, this line item would be drawn on to help pay for contractors who would do work on behalf of districts, things like reviewing policies, answering certain types of bookkeeping questions, that kind of thing. So, that's we're flat budgeting that. We actually did not use this last year. That did get reallocated to council staffing costs. But we are continuing to hold that placeholder here for contract. Then last year we treated this one-time allocation of $100,000 as a separate fund. We had districts apply for that competitively. So it was broken out in our budget. We do have one-time funding this year. It's the $250,000. However, we're rolling that into base funding. So for the expense side of things, did put that up here with the district base payments. So that's what this budget looks like. In total, 87% of this award goes directly to districts, 5% categorizing that as shared expense. So that would be the DM rep and the contractual expense, with the idea that that is providing a benefit to districts or otherwise going directly to districts. And then 8% is for council overhead and operations. Other questions?
I think it looks pretty good to me.
So that means, Claire, that each district is gonna get another 17,857,
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
which hasn't been already allocated, correct?
We haven't signed the sub-agreements yet. I
Okay,
do
so
have.
it's coming.
It's coming. Hopefully
Okay.
hopefully this week, maybe early next week, but assuming we can get the details worked out with the Agency of Agriculture on the parent agreement, that's what we're sort of waiting on right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so conceivably, this sheet is something that council, that we would bring to the full council board for their approval, and then we would submit this to the Agency of Ag, right, Claire?
We do submit this to the Agency of Ag.
Yeah.
I don't, whether or not we need full council approval, I think that's a question. I was hoping to
It
get
just
finance.
delayed.
It would delay, it would delay the sub-agreements. I can call a special meeting of council, if we want council to approve this budget breakdown. But council has already approved the amount to districts. So I think I've already spoken with Nina about this. Nina Gage at the Agency of Agriculture manages this grant. She's comfortable moving forward with the agreements based on the last council vote that approved the allocation to districts. The rest of it is sort of informational for them, just how council intends to use the money. This will also be reviewed by council under the full budget, which is something we're scheduled to take up at our August meeting. If council were to decide this allocation, they wanted to change some amount of this allocation during the full budget process, I think that's fine. We would simply submit the updated budget to the Agency of Agriculture. I think they just need something on file right now that would be a guideline on how we're going to use the money.
If Nina Gage
so-
is good with it, I
Yeah.
would say progress.
Yeah,
Yeah.
'Cause
Okay.
delays, you know what delays do all the time.
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, we're looking for a motion to approve the FY '26 budget as presented by Claire, with the understanding that it would be forwarded to council at its next meeting, essentially as a for your information type thing. But once we approve this, it would allow Claire and others to move forward with preparing individual grant agreements for the various districts.
Right.
I'll move that.
I'll second.
Motion by Richard, seconded by Bill to approve the FY '26 core services budget. Any further comments, questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye. Claire, thank you for assembling all that. Very clear. It's great to see, the districts being able to have such a notable increase.
Yep.
So, and then also the remaining portion helping to run council. So.
Thank
Great.
you. Yeah, thank you. And I did want to stay on this topic for just real quick. There was one additional point that we needed approval on before we execute sub-agreements. And this is very new. And so I apologize I didn't give you more notice, but this came out of our discussion with district managers on Monday. Michael Fernandez at Bennington actually brought up the idea that we incorporate the local work group process as a deliverable under this grant agreement. This was discussed. There was actually unanimous sort of approval from the district managers, which I'll admit I'm not used to having that. But this did actually seem like a pretty an idea that had consensus from among the people who were there. The people who were not there, Pam Stefanik from Otter Creek and Peter Danforth from Lamoille weren't in the meeting. So I can't say it has 100% district approval, but of the other districts, they were on board. And as I put in my email to you, the local work group process is viewed as being one of the basic functions of the district to sort of assess local natural resource needs with the community. So conceptually, I think it does tie in with core services. This would not prohibit districts from using other money, like Ag CWIP money or technical basin planning money, to whatever extent's allowable, to help support their local work group process. But those other sources of funding end up being limited because they are clean water dollars. So they can only be used by the district to support the process if what's being discussed is clean water. So districts have run up against that limitation a couple times. And so having core services money as a sort of backup and support to the process makes sense conceptually. The additional funds that were allocated by the legislature, districts expressed wanting to show additional deliverables in recognition of that, which I think is very strategically smart. So I just wanted to run that by you, and get your approval, because this would be a new deliverable under the grant agreement. I feel comfortable with it given the level of support we've had, but ultimately, because this is we have asked for approval for the deliverables under this agreement from council, because this is legislatively directed funding, rather than a competitive grant, where the deliverables are usually outlined by our parent, agreement holder. So I would make that request and see if there's any questions.
It seems to me like it makes really a lot of sense. Yeah, I would be supportive of it.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. As
I
long as the
agree.
DMs are behind it.
No, Kate brought up the correct word. Makes a lot of sense.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and I'm not an ongoing student of this, at least on a day-to-day basis, but to the extent that the local work group process is meaningful, NRCS looks to us to try to help carry that out, specific to clean water. It also does have some bearing on the notion of locally led conservation. So that being locally led conservation results in proposals being submitted to NRCS for, sort of these localized pools of USDA money. So I think it makes a lot of sense. And to the extent that the district managers are in agreement, let's try to make it happen.
Yep.
So Claire, are you looking for a motion from us on that aspect?
Yes.
I'll move it.
I'll second that.
Motion by Kate, seconded by Richard.
Yep.
Any further comments, questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, everyone.
Great.
I will be drafting, Lena and I will be working on these sub-agreements, and again, hopefully getting them out to districts this week. If not this week, then early next. Thank you.
Claire, I would ask for the sheet, the FY '26 budget notes. I know you've got it dated for yesterday. At the bottom of that page, could you just insert today's date and that it was approved by the Finance Committee, just so that it goes up somewhere
Yes.
on that sheet? Okay,
Yeah, I can do that. Thank you. That's a good reminder.
okay. Great. So does that cover everything, Claire, under FY '26?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Well, then, let's move along to the Vermont Ag Water Quality Partnership Regional Coordination Update. Claire / Ally.
Thanks, Rick. And Allie she's out of town, so she's not able to be at this meeting to give the update, but she let me know where we stand before the meeting. So we, as you know, we had the 2 letters that went out to the districts regarding performance issues under this grant. We've heard back from Bennington. Michael is giving up the award. He's just determined that he doesn't necessarily have the capacity to do this work. And also, he kind of indicated he's already talking with all these folks all the time. So there's not necessarily, he doesn't feel like he needs to be the one doing the regional coordination. Instead, we've worked with Rutland, and their new district manager, Katie Stiles, has agreed to take up this role. So that grant is actually being transferred to Rutland. We feel like this is a win-win scenario just because Katie's new, she's still meeting people. Being able to host these meetings is a good way for her to connect with all of the, important partners in her area, as well as give her some experience, doing this kind of regional facilitation. Part of this grant does allow the district manager to access some amount of, cohort support and around meeting facilitation itself. So we're going to get Katie in to play that role. And we have a sub-agreement developed. Because this is not $20,000 or more, it's not going to come to the Finance Committee. That's usually our threshold for Finance Committee approval. But just wanted to give you an update about what's happened as a response to that letter to Bennington. Any questions about Bennington? Okay.
Claire, how much of the agreement formally to Bennington is being transferred as far as dollar amount?
It's about 10,000, a little more.
Okay.
Yeah. So Katie, and that agreement will just finish out the term, which is 10 months. And in addition to supporting Katie's time in doing the meetings and, organizing them, some amount of that budget actually will help her district purchase some meeting facilitation equipment that was a part of the original grant agreement. And so I also view that as a win because that district does need that kind of equipment for other purposes beyond this. So it was sort of a way to, I think the term we're using these days is feed 2 birds with one seed. So it's been good all around. Okay. So the second letter was to White River. We have not heard back directly from Jennifer about this. I have not, Allie has not, Michelle has not. Rick, I know there was sort of a flurry of activity last week around this. Rick, I believe you reached out to Jennifer and Alvina by email, and Michelle also reached out to you, Kate. And Rick, I believe you talked to Kate. And so Kate,
I can give you an update, yeah.
that would be great. Thank you.
So some back and for whatever reason, I was not able to schedule. To be honest with you, I didn't realize until recently that Jennifer. I just assumed that she had gotten back to you, but we set up a time to discuss this. That didn't happen until the 17th, and then at that point, Alvina was under the impression that the full board should approve the Well, okay, let me back up a little bit. Jennifer at this point has said that she wants to return the balance of the grant. That's you know, I guess that's not an official thing because I haven't really talked to her about it yet, but we will be tomorrow. But that's what she has indicated by messaging back to me and to Alvina. And so Alvina now has, based on uh, messaging with Jennifer, has determined that she thinks it does not need to go to the full board. So, and which is a good thing because the board isn't meeting till the 31st. So we're going to have that discussion tomorrow, and I'm assuming then Jennifer will, you know, officially get back to everybody.
Okay,
I
I
don't know
appreciate that update.
how much is remaining in that, Claire?
Ooh, I don't know offhand. I need to
Okay.
take a look. But I think so, you know, obviously the district can bill for anything up until this point. So we'll work with Jennifer to make sure that that gets wrapped up. And of course, we'll wait to hear officially from Jennifer about that. I'm glad to hear. I wasn't quite sure what the considerations were for the district I had heard July 31st, but I wasn't quite sure why. So
Yeah, that was because Alvina seemed to think it needed to be approved by the full board, and she's now changed her mind. And because Jennifer, because you know, advised her that she thought that Jennifer could make that decision herself, which
yeah.
I think we're both on board. You know, Alvina's on board with now. I believe.
Okay.
So
Well,
we will
it sounds
finalize that tomorrow.
I that's a great update. So thank you. We will wait to hear on that. I have asked Allie to think about, you know, a backup or contingency plan for the region. She's out of town this week. I'm not expecting one until next week. But since, you know, we'll get official notice tomorrow, and then we'll start working on where else these dollars might go for that function.
So it'll
Um,
probably be reallocated somewhere, just like it happened with Bennington.
yeah. So we
Seems
do
like a
want
good
this.
solution.
Yeah, our parent agreement would sort of obligate us to fill this functions one way or the other. So the options would be that the money would be reallocated to another district if they're interested. That's what happened with Bennington and Rutland. So we would reach out to the other districts involved in that region. That would be our first step. The next step would be if no district is interested, we would look at other clean water partners, you know, which would potentially be agency staff, UVM staff. If that weren't a feasible option, then it might actually be filled by the ACD staff ourselves, Allie or someone else. I think that would be our last preference since um, we are trying to get this to be a regionally led effort. But I'll hear from Allie to
Okay.
see what she thinks and let you guys know at our next meeting.
Great, thanks so much.
Of course. And Kate, thank you for all you're doing, sort of back and forth with this. I know I kind of got you dragged in because you're here on this finance committee, so
No, and it's fine. It does. I'm not. It doesn't bother me at all.
thank you.
Yeah, Kate, Rick here. I appreciate your work on this matter. It's never easy when faced at such a fork in the road, but you know, I guess I appreciate your help and you know, trying to understand the background and the current situation. So we'll look forward to hearing from the district one way or the other after your meeting tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, I'll make sure that happens.
Thank you, Kate.
I think that's it for this
All
item.
right. Okay, great. So next up would be administrative related updates.
Well, I want to pause. There were a couple I'm sorry. Our last item under grants was other grants updates as needed. We have a couple quick ones. So, Rick, if we have time, I think we can just run through those quickly.
Okay. Yeah, I
Okay.
got about 15 minutes left. So,
My admin updates will be quick as well. So I think we have a couple other parent agreements that are in the works right now. Jess, do you want to talk about the award from DEC for Trees for Streams?
Sure. So we talked about this, I think, during our last meeting, or maybe it was the one before. We had applied for a new award to support Trees for Streams, and we've already heard back, and it was successful. So that grant is for $500,000. And it is also clean water funding, state clean water funding. So this is one that we can expect to be added to over time. So that is I'm still waiting to receive an agreement and sort of move through the final steps in preparing to execute that agreement. But just so you're all aware, it is coming. And I will send you more information as we have it. So that's that one. Is there, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer questions, but we did talk about this just recently, so I'm sure it's fresh for you all too.
No, I think that's it. Just that we've gotten notice from DEC that we are getting the award. So that's good news. And then the other thing is just tactical basin planning is moving forward. We now do have a parent agreement for that, so we'll be signing that and getting out sub-agreements, probably not this week, but probably next week under that agreement. So yeah, everything is moving forward. We're in a position where we have 4 parent agreement executions that we're doing essentially this week or next. So
Yeah, and I'll just say, just a heads up for you, Rick, is that the tactical basin planning agreement will probably be sent to you for execution within the next week or so. So I'll send you those materials ahead of time if you'd like to kind of look over them, but just be aware that that's coming.
okay. Thanks, Jeff.
okay, and I think that's it. Unless Emily, did you have any updates?
Just briefly, we collected applications for the Agricultural Advisory Committee. We are still waiting, Claire, Michelle, and I, to sort of all get together and review those applications and figure out the next steps moving forward. So we'll have, I think, more to update on that in the future.
Very good.
Thanks, Emily. Okay, I think that's it for grants.
All right. Does that bring us then down to administrative updates?
Does. So I have 2 items under this, and they're just following up from previous items we've discussed. The first is about the procurement policy. So at our last board meeting, we discussed and approved the council procurement policy. But there was a request that we submit that, or that we contact the state attorney general's office for additional guidance. So I've done that. I've sent our policy to the AG's office with an explanation of, or a request for guidance around, whether or not, this would be appropriate or, additional guidance on how our type of entity should be operating. I have reviewed the Agency of Administration bulletins that would, normally govern state agency. So Bulletin 3.5, Bulletin 5, both of those come into play. 3.5 is the procurement policy in general and generally applies to contracts. Bulletin 5 applies to grant making. Right now, there are a couple things that could come back from the state attorney general's office. One is just, that they punt or they say, it's fine. We're gonna just say it's fine because you're a special type of entity and, that's all fine. The other possibility is that they might say that we have to follow the guidance for state agencies. If they do that, we're going to be presented with some difficulty because a lot of the guidance is not, we're not functionally able to do that right now. The state uses certain systems like the vision system, which they do for finances, and the VT buys system, which is how they do procurement. We're not set up to use either of those systems right now, and we don't functionally have a way to do that. So, if that ends up being the case, then we would have to put that problem sort of back in the laps of the AG's office or the Agency of Administration's office and say, you know, if we're expected to follow this, we can't. So we would have to ask their help in doing that. So that's where we're at with that question. Um, you know, at this point, it's sort of with the AG's office. I haven't heard anything back other than a confirmation that she will look into it. The second item is about open meeting law guidance. We did issue open meeting law guidance to conservation districts a couple months back. And this is related to some changes to open meeting law. I tried to get guidance from the Secretary of State's office. They were not able to give me any kind of legal determinations or specific guidance because they say that's not what they do. They can only give general guidance. And so, you know, after getting that information, sort of going back and forth with them, I resubmitted the question to the AG's office and said, you know, the questions are specifically, are districts advisory or non-advisory bodies? We'd like a confirmation of that. And then what kinds of meetings are subject to open meeting law? There's some things that are pretty black and white, like district board meetings and committee meetings, if they have any committees, would be subject to open meeting law. But there's a whole host of gray area around things like strategic planning meetings or district board retreats or you know, certain types of information gathering session. So we're trying to get better guidance on that. Really, usually the state Secretary of State's office says that, you know, state entities should refer to their own legal counsel. We don't have our own legal counsel. We only have the state AG's office. So that's where that stands. Again, I have not heard it back, any guidance on that. The direction, the guidance we issued to districts was very conservative, essentially recommending that districts treat themselves as local local non-advisory bodies, which is sort of the highest level of open access guaranteed. So that would require you know, districts to have hybrid options at meetings and record those meetings. So that's something that we're going to try to work with districts on to understand a little bit more fully. The guidance went out in our newsletter, so I'll be following up with more direct guidance and trying to get some assistance, external assistance in actually conducting a training. We'd like to have VLCT come in and do a training. In the meantime, there is a training available from the Secretary of State's office, and we're encouraging all district supervisors to take that training. So that's where we're at. I apologize that this is sort of in progress. It's been kind of frustrating to try to get guidance from the state on how we should be applying this law, just given some of the unique aspects of how we're configured in our operations. But that's where we're at with both procurement and open meeting law. Let's see if there's any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Claire. I'm sorry it's been such a challenge, but I'm grateful that we did approve the procurement policy the last time we met. I think we did so in order to help ourselves with DEC's audit. So to the extent that there's still some possible remaining, lingering, difficult questions on procurement, I'm glad we gave DEC what makes them happy.
Yes, we did. So the DEC audit is complete. We did submit the document to them and they got back to us and said, thank you for submitting. They did flag a couple things in our policy that would not align with federal requirements for procurement under federal awards. Council doesn't receive federal awards directly right now. We just have a couple of pass-throughs, and the procurement question doesn't really come up because of the grant making guidelines sort of both meet that standard and also have their own guidance. So we don't really do contracting under federal subawards. So it's sort of been a little bit moot, the federal question. But of course, it would be ideal if our policy was in alignment with federal guidelines so that if it does become a question, we're not left scrambling. So we do probably still need to do work to review that policy regardless of what comes down from the AG's office, but that policy has been submitted to DEC. Our audit is complete. We did get what we needed for the time being. So thank you.
Well, that's great. The audit, we are through that mystic portal. So thank you, everybody, for your help on getting us through that. And we are in good standing with DEC.
We are.
All right, so I guess that brings us down to other business as required. Is there any other business for us?
Yeah, I have a quick question, and I apologize, I should have asked this earlier, but one of the things that Alvina was concerned about in terms of returning the grant that's in question was whether that would jeopardize awards of future grants to the district.
We don't have any, and Rick, obviously feel free to jump in, but right now we don't have any policy around that. I think one thing that may jeopardize is this specific grant in the future. We would really have to strongly consider if the district were interested in applying for this specific work again. But as far as, from my perspective, if the district is, in good standing under their other grants, I wouldn't see this as impacting those other types of awards.
Okay.
But there's no official policy.
Yeah.
Rick, do you have anything to add up to that?
Yeah, I don't think we need a policy on, what's considered to be appropriate behavior. I mean, we struggled and continue to struggle with a code of conduct policy. But to the extent that any conservation district enters into and signs a grant agreement with a funder, whether it's us or somebody else, most likely that grant agreement has a series of performance obligations and expectations. And by signing the agreement, all parties agree that, the work will get done in accordance with those expectations. So, I don't think if White River chooses to get out of this particular agreement, I don't sense that will impact them going forward, specific to this, if there is to be a renewal of this work. So we would have a future grant agreement that would most likely contain a similar set of expectations, and everybody signing would agree to it. So yeah,
I think that's basically it, kind of treating this on a program by program basis. But also, this reminds me that we had an effort, there's been sort of a long-standing conversation that we kind of pick up the thread on here and there about district performance in general and how to evaluate that. Lena and I had been working on a project to try to start putting together some metrics on that. What we were looking at are things like timeliness of deliverable submission, timeliness of invoice submission, participation at various meetings, that kind of level of, those are kind of the quantitative things that we can pull together fairly easily. So we do have some initial data on that, that we might bring to this committee and to the board in the future for consideration about whether or not we want to make any kind of policy about district performance more generally. And so something like, returning a grant agreement may show up in that kind of metric in the future, but that's not something we're currently evaluating by. But that potentially, depending on what the board thinks, could be a metric to consider in the future. But that's all.
All right. So does that conclude our business then today?
I don't have
can't
anything
see-
else.
Okay. I can't see the screen, so if everybody's nodding their head, yes, that's the end of our. Just as a reminder, our next meeting is August 20th, 8:30 in the morning, assuming life on Earth continues at that point. So I would look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Second,
Motion by Richard, second by Bill to adjourn. Any further discussion? Thank you, Claire, Lena, Jess, Emily, for all your work.
Thank you.
All in favor?
aye.
All right. Have a good day, everybody.
Yeah.
Yep, you do. Stay cool.